I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. Hey, look, Rashad, we appreciate you, but this is what we're here for. This is what we exist as a platform for, and what we wanted to help be able to do to collectively, amplify the work around these things. Um, and Yeah, anyway. But let me just say a couple words real quick on the political antithesis to this and why I admit a kind of increasing frustration even as I understand what it is. But and I'll come back and do the rest of this. I don't even know, but as I mentioned, I started watching a recent interview with the richest black man in the world, I believe, Robert Smith, and the good folks from Earn Your Leisure, um, whose platform continues to grow and whose name keep ending up in my face, whether I like it or not. So I'll put the link in the description if people want to sit down and watch the whole thing. But I just go through a couple of my notes here from um, the video. I mean, it's quite remarkable. So let me pull this up here just so we have a little bit of a so you can see what I'm talking about. Um, oh, I don't have the Earn Your Leisure interview. Hold on a second. Let me pull this up real quick. I mean, because it's quite remarkable, but I think it speaks to a lot of what ends up working against our efforts. That is the efforts of collectively that we're involved in, to try to magnify different kinds of politics. And in terms of my work around, and I'll actually play you this one. I don't know if this will get the. I might have to clip this because I think they'll give me a copyright hit if I play it. But so I'm not going to play it. I don't want to take a chance. But this is just this is the video I'm talking about, and I'll put the link in the show description of Earn Your Leisure talking to Robert Smith. And uh and yeah, he's oh wow, right on, Rashad. Yeah, he talks about Denver and Colorado and the 5 Points area. And in fact, one of the points that I've written down here is that because this actually dovetails with the work I'm doing now and finishing up the second edition edits for the Myth and Propaganda of Black Buying Power. And I'm not going to write about this. I'm not going to include this in the book, but this is just one of the many things that will not be included in the book that will just be good for content here. Because what Robert Smith and Earn Your Leisure end up doing is regurgitating a lot of the mythologies that again inhibit our ability to understand how the economy works, what the relationship black people have to that economy, what can be done as a result, and then really I think it does kind of trickle down, pun intended, into negatively impacting our ability to free political prisoners, build the ranks of our radical political organizations. And by the way, shout out to Black Alliance for Peace, getting to see them. Forgot even to talk a little bit about this, but got to see some of the good folks of BAP in person the other night, and to be back in DC, in a social setting in a way I hadn't been in a long time. And it's weird going back into some of my own stopping grounds and to see just how much gentrification has changed everything, and how much Black capitalism has not impacted us positively. And welcome, Scribe God Blessed, a Scribe God Blessed. Welcome as a new member to the channel. But so shout out to BAP. It was good to see everybody, and continued good work. But what works against those efforts are videos like this and conversations like this, which have hundreds of thousands of views already. I mean, it's crazy how much attention these views get. These things get. Think in just a couple of days, this is well over 100,000 views. but anyway, but a couple points here, and I only got through the first half, so maybe I'll do a part two. I don't know if I'll come back if I have the stomach for it, but um for instance, one of the things that he does in mentioning that is Robert Smith growing up in the 5 Points area of Denver is that he does what E. Franklin Frazier, Abram Harris, Earl O'Farry have historically made a point about. What I'm trying to make a point about more uh, recently, that one of the many negative impacts of segregation is that it created the mythology of a segregated economy that still permeates Black nationalist spaces from the radical to the conservative. That Black nationalist thread that says if we can just get control over our market, then we can start to compete with other communities. And that is not how wealth is created. Again, I'm just a broken record on that. Robert Smith does the same thing. So he starts talking about being in this segregated community and the positives of that. The inducement to self pride and do for self and Black capitalism and Black business and so on and so on. But that's part of the mythology. The circulating dollar mythology, all of these mythologies come out of the colonial inertia, as Fanon would have put it, creating a fantasy of what segregation means. But as Harris has said most aggressively, Abram Harris, and I agree, before he made his rightward turn, this is just an attempt for people like Robert Smith to get capture of the Black market and to exploit the Black community under the guise of So he talks about, then he in like the Black capitalist, what I thought was like the Black capitalist version of Umar Johnson's claims to being connected historically by ancestry to Frederick Douglass. Robert Smith, and probably a more honest discussion, comment, points out that he is a descendant by way of, I think, his great grandfather of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That his folks, once they were run out of there, apparently went west and set up in Colorado. So he's extending the mythology of Black Wall Street into this idea of the potential for Black entrepreneurialism to address these issues. But then, as I also note, he starts to talk about what his business is, which of course is Vista. Vista Equity Partners. Okay. Which, as it says here, as investors, we work closely with our portfolio of enterprise software companies to drive positive change, innovation, and growth that reaches nearly every part of our global economy. So what Robert Smith starts doing is he talks about a little bit of his business model, because of course the two brothers who host Earn Your Leisure, all they really want to do is have Black people come on here and talk about success stories. What I've noticed in this interview and many like them is that if you listen to it, the more you know about the economy and how it works, the more you realize how little they're actually sharing about that in these discussions. So Robert Smith is not teaching anyone about how the economy actually works, how business actually works. He just repeats a lot of the very popular mythologies about that I know most of his audience don't even understand, in terms of assets over liabilities and invest and start your business and all those. But my point is, none of it is actually explaining how wealth is really created, how business actually survives, et cetera, and so forth. So he says vaguely all these things about, when he starts to talk about what his Vista Equity Group does. He's asked, for instance, what's the difference between venture capital and private equity? And it's posed as this deep question because, most people don't understand the difference. And if you're starting a business, you need to understand the difference between venture capital and private equity. Smith goes into this really long and winding answer. Not really confusing if you're paying attention, but it's more, I think it encourages confusion because it doesn't explain anything. And it's just this long, rambling answer, which basically boils down to what is it? A distinction without difference. That venture capital comes in at the beginning, and the private equity is what he does, who comes in at the end. And venture capital are the people who will get you started, and the private equity are the people who, once you've gotten to a certain level, come in and buy you out, as he said. And this is what I won't. I'm not going to play it. But I made a note that if you watch the video at the 38th minute and roughly the 32nd second, you'll notice a heavy cut in the video. It's jarring because if you've been watching as I was, there's no, from what I can remember, there's no overt note that any editing had really taken place in this video. So either the edits were done more skillfully and artfully, or they just ran the interview for the most part as it took place. But at the 38th minute and the roughly 32nd, 33rd second, you see this obvious edited cut. And a slight detour in the conversation, a slight, not major. And the reason I bring this up is because this is at the point where Smith starts talking about in his long and unnecessarily long explanation between the difference between venture capital and private equity. Again, a distinction without a difference, as far as I think we need to be concerned. He points to the fact that he is the private equity end, the big boy money, who come in after a business has reached a certain level of success, and they do, as he said, buy them out. He said that's when you lose control over your business. And you usually would do that because you want that payday. Why the jump cut there? I'm fascinated by why there's a jump cut there and a slight detour in the conversation. And what I'm suspicious of and suggested is because I feel like somebody maybe remembered that this is supposed to be a conversation targeting Black people with this nominal reference to Black national pride and collectivism. And because again, they start off by talking about, we want to talk to you because you're the richest Black man and you're showing what Black people can do, and you're such an inspiration, and we're honored to be sitting with you and to learn from you and to da 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 da. But what Smith is saying is, at a certain level, the big boys come in and buy you out. And I feel like somebody was saying, well, wait a minute, if we're encouraging Black capitalism and Black entrepreneurialism and Black business to solve the conditions of the Black community's material inequality, maybe we don't want to highlight this point of building up so you can get bought out. And why? Because as you look at the team that Robert Smith has put together for his Black-owned Vista Equities, it's just remarkable in what is revealed in this Black pride promoted endeavor. That at the point that your business, your Black-owned business gets I took myself out the stream. My bad, everybody. Sorry about that. Hit the wrong button. But at the point that your business gets big enough, this is who comes in. This is who you want. This is the goal for who comes in. This is who's coming. So I was like, why the jump cut? Why the jump cut at the 38-minute, 30-second point, right when Smith is talking about the difference between venture capital? So I think you get my point. I think the point is remarkably clear in terms of, anyway, what I'm saying. You know, I thought it was just such a remarkable moment because so that was just one thing. Now the other thing that is, I think, revealing in Smith's biography and his tale is, I said, he starts with this myth that segregation is ultimately good because it teaches black people do for self and the value of black business, and of course creates a condition, he wouldn't have said it this way, for a black capitalist elite to live off of the oppression of their own community. But then he goes into talk about how he made his money. Well, he doesn't really talk about how he made his money in a way that I think they meant to talk about it. Because again, this is meant to be a black pride conversation about the richest black man in the world, which is doing what good for who, by the way. But then the other thing is, but what he's saying as he starts to talk about his wealth creation. Okay, let me back up because I kind of went out of order a little bit. He makes the mention of going to first Cornell and then Columbia universities, where initially he was going to do something involving science or chemistry or something like that. And then he was introduced indirectly, in large part, as he credits black media, like Black Enterprise Magazine, for promoting black capitalist superstars that would inspire him and eventually mentor him. And one of the points that he makes, that is Robert Smith, is that he actually says you have to be mentored in the investment world, because he talks about moving from the chemical world to the investment world. And he's saying, you have to be mentored. You have to be brought in, basically, and taught the way things work and made, introduced to the right people, so on and so on and so forth. So I'm saying, okay, I'm hoping people are hearing this, because he's admitting that you cannot, this whole idea that you could just do for self and everybody can do this. He talks about the importance of that the black commercial press, which I'm incredibly critical of, and which I'm showing in my own work produces and reproduces for their own benefit, financial and class-wise, social and financial class-wise, the myth of buying power and capitalism and so on and so forth. And then he talks about having to be mentored and walked in to all of this if you want to get in. And then he talks about how his wealth basically comes from making white companies more money, because he talks about all the places he worked for, all the businesses he worked in, and they were all, I don't remember the names, but they were all, run of the mill major white companies. But then he goes into Silicon Valley, where his money now is being made, as I showed you, from his Vista equity partners, and as he explains, by matching he explained some of the the technical, but he's basically saying I'm not I'm selling basically an organization, and I'm matching an ability to organize and arrange the software, the mechanisms for organizing software. I'm just basically making that routine, organizing that, and making it something that can be applicable across different software platforms. Something it's involving something like that. I don't pretend to know exactly what it is, but my point is it's in Silicon Valley. It's in Silicon Valley, it's in software, it's in data, computing and all that kind of stuff. And it's about investment. And as he said, it's about the investment at the level. And if you go back, by the way, I'll come back and show this. Um, because I had actually made a note about this as well. If you, uh, With over 94 billion in assets under management and over 20 years of investing exclusively in enterprise software, we believe the transformative power of technology is the key to an even better future, a healthier planet, a smarter economy, a diverse and inclusive community, a broader path to prosperity. So that's helpful because what he said, what I remember, what he was talking about was that he was taking, um, uh, he was talking about the importance of computers to investing, the algorithms, the ability for computers to make quick decisions and invest quickly and all of that. And he was talking about how he's helping different software companies link up with that ability. Um, anyway, I don't again, like I said, I don't pretend to know, but if you or to understand, but if you so I'm not saying I'm not commenting on his business or his business model. I'm just commenting on where he seems to how he's supposed to be promoted as black wealth and black business and black capitalism. But obviously, everything is about making money for white companies, white capital, and so on. And if you look at the portfolio, I was wondering if I don't know and don't have the evidence and can't prove it, but I'm just wondering to what extent the companies they invest in that you see listed here are black owned. And I suspect none to not many, but I and they haven't so far in the first, more than half of the interview that I've watched talked about that. They haven't made that point. So maybe this is something, and maybe some of you will recognize these companies and can tell me if they are black owned. But I just suspect not. Um, in other words, I'm saying that Robert Smith is being promoted as a hero to black people in terms of black capital and capitalism, but is not having an impact on the black community, is not necessarily doing work that will directly help and impact the black community other than the mythology behind promoting black capitalism as a solution. So yeah, so he talks about moving into Silicon Valley, and we and people are well aware of how racist that environment is, and how white that environment is, and how it's dependent on funding, which again goes back to the constant problem of black business, that black businesses need, and he talks about this, that black people haven't developed the relationships with a local branch of their bank because there aren't local branches of a bank in their neighborhoods, and therefore struggle to get the venture capital that you need to get started before you can build yourself to the point where you get the private equity coming to buy you out. But he doesn't, he just says that in passing, as almost as if to say black people should do more to build relationships with banks, as if that's the problem, as if that's all. That's again the behavior of black people is lacking here. What my note here says: problems with investment and getting advertisers to pay you to access to your people, a virtuous cycle of capital investment. So then that's where he's also talking about that. He calls it a virtuous cycle of getting the investment you need to build your platform to the point where you have a bigger audience, to get more investment, to get more advertising, to continue to grow, to do better, to reach your own audience. But again, what is left out of that mythology is that the virtuous cycle that Smith is describing is not one that involves Black people or Black business. Because for a Black business or any business to grow, it cannot grow on the basis of Black consumers. Black people don't have enough money. It also can't grow, as he already acknowledged, unless white venture capital and white private equity eventually comes in. As I keep arguing, the advertising model that has been constructed as the veneer of the colonial project determines the content of the media. So mostly white corporate advertising dollars drives the content of media, which is why the Black commercial press, a la these guys, in chasing that advertising revenue, adjust their content to satisfy white advertisers. As a result, the content, as Black as it may appear to be, is serving a very white conservative political project. And in this case, by explaining capitalism as an investment, as a virtuous cycle that will ultimately help, in this case, Black business people build businesses that will help their communities grow, and so on and so forth. It's quite remarkable. So where I ended it was right at that jump cut that I was talking about a few minutes ago, where, again, just at the midpoint of the 38th minute, you see this huge cut as he's talking about how private equity groups come in and buy you out. Because it seems to me, as I think some of you in the chat had noted, it acknowledges that the goal of a business is to grow to the point where you will be bought out and seen as viable by the biggest or bigger companies. How does that build something that will be good or owned by, controlled by, and good for Black people? And I think that's why they needed to cut there and say, we need to, you know. So I get this all the time, Ty 313, and I understand that you would be confused, particularly if these guys form the basis of your media environment or similar content. But what is the solution? I don't know exactly what to do, other than I can say, again, the vague: join radical organizations and make them more radical. And in those spaces, the answers to what we should do about it will be discovered. They're not going to come on YouTube channels and from silly fake pundits who claim to have all the solutions. What I am saying, though, is that there is no solution that involves mythological beliefs in Black business, Black capitalism, or capitalism in general. So when I get criticized, as it happens all the time, for not having the solution and only exposing the problem, that criticism should be turned into praise, quite frankly. Thank you, Jared, for encouraging us to see beyond the mythology and the veneers of advance and progress, so that we can actually realize what is our true situation and then come to a real conclusion and find a real solution. So all I'm simply saying is we got to get past this kind of stuff if we're going to get to solutions, because this is not a solution. This is not a solution. The creation of a handful of Black billionaires whose entire business model is in making money for bigger white companies. That's not a solution to Black or anyone else's inequality. And again, I'll just not quietly per se, but humbly remind once again, even white people don't have it all good in a white supremacist capitalist society. Even white folks struggle, despite all appearances and claims to the otherwise. So the idea that Black people should duplicate what white people have done to solve our problems is just double and tripling down on nonsense. So I don't know exactly what to do. And it's not even that I'm not giving away the answers, like I have them, Coco. But I appreciate the sentiment of your comment, but I just don't know what to do. I don't but I do know that I would know what to do were I in rooms offline, off the record with like-minded folks in radical organization with one another. Um, I don't know either. A bit off topic. What are your thoughts on Abraham Lincoln and the 1619 Project? A lot of communists today love Lincoln and call the 1619 Project bad. Well, if anyone who loves Lincoln is a moron. That's my answer. That's my academic, scientific, data driven, research. No. So I'm going to take a shot at what I think is happening there real quick. And I do think it is somewhat related. When Marx wrote his letter to Lincoln, thanking him for freeing the slaves because it freed the working people of Europe, I think if you read that letter carefully and read it in the context of Marx's broader writing, he was being ironic. And it wasn't in a way to genuinely praise Lincoln. It was, I think, a shot at the global system of inequality and an inducement, if I remember the letter correctly, that Johnson coming in behind Lincoln would continue that project for the good of working people. But it wasn't so I don't know if modern day communists are getting having a love affair with Lincoln because of a misreading of Marx's letter to him or some other reason. I don't know. And the 1619 Project, the only reason that I would agree that it's propaganda is that it again purports to be a radical analysis that is coming from decidedly unradical folks with unradical solutions to the problem. So if anything, that would be my issue. I did read a couple of world socialist web critiques of the 1619 Project a year or two ago, and I know that they were making the point that by making everything about race, you deny class, and I think that was probably part of it. But um, but my bigger concern would be that the people who are getting credit for that work and praise for that work are doing so much like we see happening throughout the rest of Mott's woke imperium, that it's not a radical, it's a decidedly unradical critique of a radical problem. That would be I don't know. That's you know. Anyway, so, but anyway, my point for today though is just that though. I don't know if I'm going to finish this Robert Smith interview. I suffered through about 40 minutes of it, and but especially just coming after the discussion about Mumia, it's like a stark reminder of the media environment against which we're struggling. That's producing a lot of bad analyses and a lot of bad politics. While making a handful of Black people a little bit of money relative to all that is being done. Yeah, no one here is praising Lincoln. So anyway, in fact, yeah, we never did get the copyright prevented us from doing our Dr. Burroughs and I doing our debate about Lerone Bennett and Eric Foner. But anyway, all right, good people. Thanks again for those who have seen this here live. I really appreciate you coming through as always. To those who see this later, same to you. Thanks for checking it out. Do all the things, ring the bell, click all the buttons, put this in your socials, share the work. Let's get this word out. If not about the issues around Black capitalism, let's definitely get the word out about Mumia and do as we were told earlier by our panel, everything. And let's get him out. Peace, like Fred Hampton used to say, if you're willing to fight for it. Catch you next time here at I Mix What I Like, and all throughout the week here on the Black Power Media platform. Peace, everybody.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.